So not only are Canadian real estate investors gone, the game they were playing may not even exist anymore. Or are they just hiding, waiting for the perfect storm? Did you know that in 2016, investors were buying 1 in every 5 homes in Canada? Today, that number has totally collapsed. And it's not just interest rates that are to blame. I'm joined by Calvin Hexter of Calvin Realty today. We're talking about where have all the real estate investors gone? Calvin, fill us in. Welcome. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Well, I can tell you they're probably not active in Calgary. And I think the reason why you're not seeing them is because they're all in Edmonton right now. So you just got to get your butt to Edmonton and you'll probably see a lot of them driving around doing cash for homes. So cash for keys, all the things.
Well, it's such an interesting time. We've got, Toronto being the center of the universe when it comes to Canada. The condo market is absolutely imploding. And I mean, that's everything from investors to developers to builders to tradespeople. And, to a lesser degree, same thing's happening in Vancouver, only strictly because of population. But then we move on to Alberta and Edmonton, where you are immersed in the Alberta market and specifically in the Edmonton and surrounding area market. So my question is, what makes Alberta different? What do you think makes Edmonton different? Because as you and I both know, there is still a pretty strong investment community in Edmonton.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of reasons why investors choose to invest in Alberta. And I also think there's a lot of reasons why primary home buyers are also looking at purchasing, because it's the two, right? And in certain cases, you see a legally suited house. It's not always an investor that's purchasing it. Sometimes it is a family. Sometimes it's a family that just wants to have a separate suite for their teenager, for different intergenerational living, or an Airbnb, or whatever it is, right? If you look at the numbers of the affordability in Edmonton specifically, even in Alberta in comparison to their other provinces, it actually allows families, it allows investors to actually build some equity relatively early on in their life. They don't have to wait to the age of 40 to purchase a home. You can purchase a home at the age, 22, 23, 24, 25, because of that affordability. The $1.5 million house that you're subject to in Vancouver, $400,000 here, right? I mean, even at 5% down, that's massive. That is a massive difference. Mm-hmm. And then your mortgage payments, right? Like they literally handcuff you. It's like the system set you up to fail as a younger person in most of these provinces, because who the hell can afford that? And I know there's vacancy taxes that they put on, and there's short-term rentals, restrictions, because what's happening is the market's just getting away from itself, or the local residents that grew up there. I could be a kid in Vancouver growing up, and I can't even afford a damn house in my backyard. So guess where I'm going? I'm going to Alberta, right? Not only is the affordability there, but if you look at the average income per province, per city, we are amongst the highest in comparison as well. Now, what is that doing? That actually gives you a budget to have a good lifestyle. Because I mean, yes, you're in Vancouver, you have the ocean, there's a lot of great things. Yes, you're in Toronto, lots of great lakes. But I mean, if you don't have any money to do anything, I mean, what's the point? You're renting until you're 40, and then you're finally trying to get a good, honest start in life. You could have a great job, you could work hard. It doesn't mean you're into drugs and partying. Honest people can't make it ahead, and they have the ability to here. And I think if you look at the stats for 2024, we broke some records for migration that we haven't seen since like the 80s in relation to how many people are coming over. And there's a reason for that. And not only that, I mean, let's look at the future growth. We don't have a crystal ball to show us what's going to be happening next month, next year. And I mean, I already have an idea, and we can talk about that a little bit afterwards. But there's a lot of infrastructure that's being developed in Alberta right now based on the potential that we have. And a lot of people love what they see. A lot of people love the potential of the growth that we're going to see in Alberta based on this infrastructure. And we know that infrastructure can really take a really positive or negative effect in, depending on what it is, in the GDP, in the growth of a city, of a province. And there's just a lot of opportunity right now.
I think it's an interesting time, isn't it? Because when we look at what's happening in Alberta, we've got, to your point, we've got interprovincial migration, and then we've got refugee coming in, lots of Ukraine, refugees coming into the province. Edmonton, of course, is one of the key landing spots, as is Saskatchewan. But the point of it is that we've got this immigration coming into Alberta, and arguably it will start to slow. But then when we look at what's happening in Edmonton right now, we often, it's easy to look at the data and say, well, Edmonton follows Calgary. And so we see a slowdown in Calgary, and then we see an 18-month lag of a potential slowdown in Edmonton as well. Having said all that, as investors, we have to look into the future, and then we make decisions based on what's going on economically. To your point, in Edmonton, big infrastructure going on right now, which means jobs, which means people are being paid to work, which is our potential, tenants. And so for us as rental housing providers in the investment space, that model makes sense. So do you think, when you look into the future of Edmonton and you look at a potential slowdown, we're starting to see some slowdown, but when you're coming off a boom cycle, it's like when you're on the highway and you're doing 120 kilometers down a highway, and all of a sudden you're going through a small town and you got to slow down to 60 or 80. It feels like you're almost stopped relative to the speed of which you were traveling just a moment ago. And I get, that's often what I see. People get into the emotion and the excitement of a boom cycle, and it's so cool and it's so awesome and get deals done. And then all of a sudden we start to go into the slump cycle, and everybody goes, holy cow, the sky is falling, I'm out. Yet this is where most of the opportunities are starting to live. So, we're going to be talking a lot. We've got the REIcon conference coming up, the Real Estate Investor Conference coming up September 6, 7, 8. And we're going to be having a whole array of experts in the trenches, individuals speaking to all of these topics. But Calvin, you've started to notice a bit of a slowdown in Edmonton in that real estate market for investors and maybe for end users. I'm not sure. So give us a little bit of how significant is the slowdown be, and when you look into the future, are you seeing more of the same slowdown, or what's your thoughts? We're looking at the economic fundamentals. How do you see it?
Yeah. So we are very much in a seller's market. And I do need to go back to that example that you made. You're going 120, and even if you slow down to 100, it feels like you're not making the same progress towards your destination. And sometimes you just need to be reminded that slowing down isn't necessarily a bad thing. It gives you an opportunity to reflect, readjust, look at opportunities a little bit different, because just like, you're playing a team, you're playing a hockey team. If things change and the other team's coming at you a little bit different, it doesn't hurt to play a different strategy, because those different strategies, and you should have a different playbook based on the type of market, the different season that you're in, and what's happening ultimately, overall. What are incentives is the government offering you? You got to look at everything, right? What are the challenges? What are the opportunities? And then come up with something that makes sense for you. And most of the time, it's just connecting with other people, seeing what they're doing, and then collecting all that information so then you can make the best educated decision. And that's why REIcon is the room that you need to be in, because it's not just yourself, it's some of the top Canadian, even, North American investors that are going to be here and even speaking on stage. And they told me they're going to be putting it all on stage. They're not going to leave anything. They're not going to hold back at all. And so you get to learn from all these different people's perspectives, and then you're able to gather that and help make it'll help make your educated decision of which direction you're going to be going to. In the market in Edmonton right now, the shortest inventory that we have, I love talking about inventory. Inventory is the consumption rate versus how many listings are getting put on, right? So say, for example, we have 1 month of inventory, which some of the bigger cities have seen in the past. It means that if there was no new listings to come up, it would take a month for that to go to effectively zero. Okay. So right now we have 2.5 months of inventory, which keeps us in a seller's market. However, we were doing 120, kilometers an hour back in Q3, where we saw 1.9 months of inventory. So even 2.5 months still being very much a seller's market, and Edmontonians still being very used to a buyer's market, because that's historically, if you look at the last decade, that's where we've been fit, right? And so it feels like we're going at a snail's pace. Sellers are like, hey, it's been a week. How come I'm not sold yet? You would never hear someone say this 3 or 4 years ago. It'd be like, it's been a month. Why am I not selling yet? But it's because the perceptions change. And because we're slowing down a little bit, sellers they're getting uncomfortable. They're getting uncomfortable. And this is where deals happen. When sellers are uncomfortable, go ahead and find a solution to whatever their problem is. And every seller has a different problem. And this is ultimately where we find the best deals.
Now, I know you're an investor focused realtor. I mean, you got your brokerage, your team covers all of it. But I mean, you yourself pay really close attention to what's happening in the investment world. Here's my take on a few things, my observation. And that is that when we look at so many individuals, they're looking at headlines. And the headlines are pretty doom and gloom, but most of those headlines are actually driven by what's going on in Ontario, in particularly Southern Ontario, and certainly what's going on in British Columbia and the challenges that are faced. You talk about 2.5 months of inventory in Edmonton. And I want to say that I think given the condo market, I think they don't get specific in that data, but I think they're 10 months, 11 months of inventory. And I think it's condo inventory. The detached, not so much. I mean, there's been some pullback in prices off the 2022 highs, which, who cares? Like if you bought in 2022 and were expecting to profit and exit in 2025, I mean, that's a roll of the dice at best. So when you go into an all-time high, everybody thinks it's going to go up forever without a pullback. I mean, that's never happened in the history of real estate. There's always a pullback. We got hit. That's just what it is. The thing is that in Edmonton, in Alberta in general, although you're seeing a slowdown, you're not seeing that kind of a crash. So my point is that, within the Real Estate Investor Conference, REIcon, what I do with Rain, what you do with Calvin Realty, we're looking at the data. And as we look into the future of Alberta, we're going, yeah, it's going to get slow. But this is where if you don't follow the crowd's sitting on the sidelines. The crowd's going, no, the world's coming to an end. And we're looking at it going, yeah, we're not looking at it through rose-colored glasses, but man, there's some opportunity here, and they're going to continue to be opportunities show up. That's kind of my take on it. I think people, and my job, and where I want to, where I'm going to be sharing on stage and supporting you and co-hosting, is that showing the economics that really look into the future 3, 4, 5 years. And I mean, it's hard to look that deep, but you have to start somewhere. And we can reconfigure every few months to kind of see what the new data is, but they're data-driven decisions and strategies versus the emotion that drives people, the good and the bad. The sky is falling right now has taken investors right out of the market. And we're looking at it going, don't do that. And we're here to talk about a little bit about the Real Estate Investor Conference, where those questions are going to get answered, where you can put yourself in an environment with like-minded people, with experts who are in the trenches every single day investing in real estate. They know that market. I don't know where I'm going. What would you add to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be, you're going to see many different people's playbooks and how they're going to be attacking the remaining 2025 market, the 2026 market. And I mean, if you're not in rooms like this, you're going to be missing out on this information. You're not going to get the same connections. Yes, online events are great, and there's opportunities for a lot, but it's not the same as coming in and actually meeting people, developing these relationships. Because at the end of the day, I would say, one reason why I've been successful, one of my best reasons of why I'm successful in real estate investing is the relationships I was able to build and continuing to build. And you're going to be able to see our very best professional partners. You're going to be able to make connections with Patrick, be a part of the Rain community even further. Rain is one of the longest standing investor networks. They've seen so many investors come and go. They've seen those that have made it to the top. They're continuing to make an impact. And I think it's a great opportunity to be a part of these conversations that normally you'd never be a part of. When you leave REIcon, you will tell yourself, I can promise you this, I'm so happy I made the decision to go. I'm so happy I booked my flight. I'm so happy I booked my hotel. which we're offering discounts on because of the value that you're going to receive. And it's going to be 100-fold for what you paid for the event.
So we've got myself, you, Wayne Hillier, Keaton, give me some other names.
We got Alfonso.
Alfonso
we got
Quadra.
Alfonso. Yeah. And we have Deanna Boyden. We have Gabby Hillier. We have Patrick and Zoria Belanger that are going to be present there as well. Ryan Carr, which is huge in the Trust Your Talent. Gustavo, huge in Trust Your Talent. We have a bunch of wholesalers that are showing up. If you don't have a connection with a wholesaler as an investor, you're missing out on a massive opportunity. I'm going to have 7 of the best wholesalers in Alberta showing up to this event to present their very best deals, at least 20 to 30 of their deals. And the focus this year is deals. And you're going to see how the grandfather of real estate actually analyzes deals, residential, commercial, creative, the questions he asks, right? You're going to be able to see it from a participant standpoint. You're going to be able to engage in the process. I mean, if you went to REIcon last year, the engagement that we're offering this year with the speakers is next level, right?
Yeah.
Like,
and I think I want to be, there's a couple things we want to be clear on. Having hosted events for the past 25 years, many events, hundreds of events, there's a fundamental that if somebody's watching this going, should I go, shouldn't I go? Listen, the experts that are on stage are truly experts, and most of them, or many of them, are experts on Alberta, specifically Edmonton, Calgary, that area market. That's the first thing. Second thing is, this is not a pitch fest. You're not going to be pitched every speaker that comes up, because I know people go, I don't want to go, and all they're going to do is pitch from stage. That's not what this is. Will there be opportunities to look at? 100%, but nobody's standing up there. They're going to deliver true take action content that you can put to work the next day if that's what your decision is. And if you want some additional support, that will be there. But this isn't a sales funnel into the audience. So you can go, you can take notes, you can walk away, you can meet people and not think that you're being pressured to buy the next thing. Is that a fair statement? I believe it is. I hope it is.
My first acre event that Rain held, I think I was in Coquitlam. And the reason why I love the event so much is because I went in and I got even more than what I was expecting. And I didn't feel like I was being sold at all, but I was still given the opportunity. Mm-hmm. And the opportunities are there for you to gather them, but we're not trying to, our call to actions, I mean, that's one rule of REIcon. It's about collaboration, and it's about you actually walking away with tangible tools that you can take with you to apply to your real estate. And it's not about being sold in the slightest. And when it comes to the tools, some of our top speakers are going to be sharing with you. If you show up to REIcon, you're going to get some of their very best tools that you can take with you, property analyzers, just information on how to deal check, etc. Talking about the different areas, understanding ABCD areas in different cities. There's going to be a lot of opportunities for you to take things with you going forward. But no, I mean, one of my first favorite real estate events was an event that you held, Patrick. And I'm not just saying that, I'll say that on every interview I've ever had. Mm-hmm. And it inspired me to be like, why aren't more events like this, right? Like, why does it have to be sold? And we did REIcon last year, and we took all the sales out of it. And there was more sales that happened because we actually removed the sales, the call to action. So when it comes to the speakers, the main point is to be able to provide the greatest amount of value and then let them decide if they want to be a part of that community. But you're going to have many different communities that you can be a part of if you so choose. But it's about real information that you can take with you today.
So, there's a few people watching, so that's great. If you got some questions and you happen to be watching, we're going to wind down here in a few minutes. But if you've got some questions, put them in the chat and we'll do our best to answer them. There's a comment in the chat that Edmonton has been repressed for 13 years because of federal attempts to cool Toronto and Vancouver. And something, I agree to a large degree with that particular statement, but that isn't really always the case. I mean, Alberta's stood the test of pressure and time of not putting, rental restrictions in and rent controls and really letting the market dictate what it is. And by the way, the evidence is clear. Our rental market is far superior, both to the benefit of the tenant and the investor, I believe. Rent controls and this over bureaucratic approach to managing rental properties that BC and Ontario have is just, I don't even want to go down that path. But the point of it is that Alberta remains a great economic engine for Canada. It continues to see a future growth. As investors, we are seeing more people move into the province because, to your point earlier, Calvin, cost of living, cost of housing, difference in tax. We don't have that provincial sales tax as to higher incomes given what's going on. I mean, there's so many benefits. And so within all of this, my guidance to anybody is an investor, considering being an investor, don't follow the herd, because the herd is listening and buying into the headlines. They're being driven by emotion. We're here to talk about, over the course of the Real Estate Investor Conference, we're here to talk about the data, take the emotion out. But having the emotion is going to be fun. You're going to be in an environment of some really cool people, like-minded individuals. You're going to meet a ton of people. You're going to have the opportunity to listen to a whole array of expert speakers. So that's what I wanted to kind of complete on. I'm not seeing any other questions come in. Everybody's being a little bit shy. That's fine. Calvin, how would you like to wrap this up?
I'm excited to see you all at REIcon. And I mean, if you're obviously following Patrick. That's why you know this is happening. But I think Patrick even has, a discount code. He's going to be there on the Friday for the Invest in Yourself package. So the Invest in Yourself is a great opportunity that if you have 1 foot out, 1 foot in real estate, it's a great way to get re-engaged, or if you're a new investor as well. There's just so many opportunities, and I'm really excited to see you all very soon. So
beautiful. Calvin, thanks for joining me. Folks, go in the links below, the description of the event. There's a discount code in there for you. Calvin and I both, and the rest of the group, are looking forward to seeing you at REIcon. And thanks again, Calvin.
Thank you.